Never review a bad product. That's one of the key rules if you're a product reviewer. I don't like following the rules though, so today we're looking at the HP Omen 17. Now I'm going to start off here with the spec list because at 1500 euros for this model, the spec list is actually pretty good. So inside is a true quad core with hyperthreading. It's the Intel Core i7-6700HQ. It's a quad core with hyperthreading that runs between 2.6 and 3.5 GHz, which is a lot. Now sadly in my review sample I only have the GTX 965. So we don't get the latest and greatest 1060 or 1070 or even the 1050 Ti when that comes to market. Now HP made a really weird choice with the memory in this laptop. It has an 8GB stick and a 4GB stick of DDR4. I'm actually pretty confident that a single 16GB stick would have been better. It would also be better for upgradability, but sadly you cannot really upgrade anything on this laptop without taking the entire bottom off, which is a major downside in my opinion. As a little bit of a way of making up, the storage that's included is definitely best in class with the Omen 17 because you get a 250GB Samsung NVMe SSD combined with a 1TB 7200 RPM hard drive. And on the left of the device, right over there, there's also a DVD burner for people who are still using optical media. The I/O is somewhat limited, so on the left side are dual USB 3.0 ports and a 4-pole headphone jack along with a Kensington lock. The right side has the power jack, Ethernet, HDMI and a third USB 3.0 port. Now oddly enough there is an SD card reader in here, which makes this laptop definitely not a pro model. The full-size Ethernet jack is connected to a Realtek chip, which is not something that I'm super stoked about, but luckily the Wi-Fi chip is a dual band Intel chip, so it actually does really well in Wi-Fi transfer speeds. In the back there's a tiny 62 watt-hour battery. Now that is pretty pathetic if you ask me, especially given how large this laptop is. It's a 17-inch laptop, it weighs 3 kilograms. They could have put a bigger battery in there, but they didn't. Now in HP's defense, they claim you can get it up to 90% of a charge in only 90 minutes, and that is correct. However, those final 10% also take 90 minutes, so I don't know what to think about that. It's not like you get 9 minutes per 10% or something like that. What makes this even worse is that the standard brick is like a 150 watt massive charger, and while you're under full load, the charger can't power the system and charge the battery at the same time, so yeah. In between these massive bezels, there's a 17.3 inch 1080p IPS display with fairly mediocre viewing angles, horrible contrast, and it's so dim that even in a room like this where there are just 2 studio lights right there, you can very hardly see just the blacks on it. There's actually in the actual picture like a lot of lines in there. You can't possibly see this display. So if you want to work in a very bright room, maybe, but you can completely forget about working outdoors on this device. And something else I don't like is the hinges. They're way too stiff, so you can close it with one finger, but good luck opening it with one finger. So they're way too stiff. There we go. Now moving back to things I actually like, the keyboard is actually quite nice to type on. I like the clickiness of it. The trackpad is very large, it supports multi-touch, it supports a bunch of different gestures. The keyboard's backlit, you got the media keys on there, not dedicated media keys, so they do double up as function keys through the modifier button. But I actually like the keyboard and the trackpad a whole lot. Too bad it does not have a full-size enter or full-size arrow keys. The webcam on the HP Omen 17 is bad, and it should feel bad. These are perfect lighting conditions. There are hardly any shadows here. It's super bright in this room, and still my face looks horrible, and that's not just down to my face. The microphones in there are pretty decent, and the speakers by Bang & Olufsen are actually decent to good. I have to say I do not know whether or not this is actually Bang & Olufsen making these speakers or just certifying them or just tuning them, so it's probably just a badge on there that HP pays for. The laptop in this configuration weighs a whopping 3 kilograms. It's also so big that it won't fit into my backpack. To add to that, you will have to carry a power brick around you at all times if you want to do some serious work on it, for reasons that I will explain later on. So I wouldn't really call this thing a laptop because it's just too big and heavy to comfortably even sit on your lap. It's more of a desktop replacement, so I will be evaluating it as a desktop replacement. Now the system is completely made from plastic, which means that there is a bunch of flex in basically every single part of it. It does not feel like a €1,500 device, and that is a shame, especially if you're spending so much money on a laptop-desktop replacement, which is just a bunch of plastic. I do not like the way it feels and looks at all. Now moving from the hardware to the software, not that it's so hard anyway, it's bloated AF, really. It's super bloated. It has Dropbox, McAfee, it has Office and trial versions of like a bunch of other stuff that you'll never need in your entire life. There's even an Amazon referral link in the taskbar when you just install it. So I have no clue why HP is doing it, probably to get the price down, but honestly guys, stop including so much bloatware on everything. It's annoying. So guys, enough ranting for the next minute or so. Performance numbers are what matters most, and so here's performance. Performance is good. The quad-core CPU with hyperthreading is plenty fast. 12 GB of RAM is enough for most users, and as long as you keep it plugged in, the graphics card is actually really fast. I mean, for a 900 series mobile chip. I was able to play just about any game that I wanted to play, as long as I just lowered the settings to a reasonable level for a laptop. Now, to test how usable the system really is, I edited an entire video for my mountain biking channel on the Omen 17, and the experience was actually pretty good. Because it has such an incredibly fast NVMe SSD inside, it just renders videos so quickly. It loads up the files really quickly. Scrolling through the video timeline was effortless. It was actually a very nice experience to edit video on it. But now back to ranting. The cooling solution cannot keep up with the hardware inside, and this is just the GTX 965M model. I can imagine the 1070 model being even worse. CPU temperatures went well over 90 degrees, at one point even making a black screen appear where I just had to close it, open it back up, and then I could continue the rendering. In games though, the GPU actually stays decently cool. It's somewhere between 70 and 80 degrees on the GPU, which is acceptable because there's no thermal throttling going on with the system. It just shuts itself down when it gets too hot. Now, if you guys think that the reason there is no thermal throttling is because HP has a decent cooling solution, you'd be wrong. It just does it because it's super loud. If you're playing a lot of Flight Simulator, this will really make for a very immersive experience. But even when you're just staring at your wallpaper, or right now, if I just bend over, you can hear the fans making a lot of noise, and it's not doing anything. There's not a single program running in the background. It's just staring at a wallpaper and it's making noise. And so here's why I think that is. So they took the HP Pavilion 17, I have a link to that in the description below, and it's the exact same laptop as this one. It's only €200 cheaper though, and it doesn't have fancy red lights on it and fake carbon fiber looks, but it's the exact same laptop. So they took a multimedia laptop, however we're going to pronounce it. They took that HP Pavilion laptop, put a slightly faster graphics card. I mean, I'm talking 960 to 965M chips, and added €200 to the price tag, and decided to market it as a gaming laptop. And now a single fan and a single heatsink, which is super tiny, has to take care of cooling for an entire gaming system, which it obviously can't do. Now, a funny positive, if you can call it that, is that it's actually capable of cooling itself when the system is not plugged in. So that's a battery life thingy. You can get about 3 hours of browsing life with the Omen 17 in this configuration, and in gaming with HP's just performance crippling battery settings, you can get 1 hour and 15 minutes out of it. However, when it's not plugged in, you get like 40% of the FPS that you would normally get when the system is actually plugged in, and so it uses less power, generates less heat, and the cooling system is capable of handling it. Now back to performance numbers again. This is actually really good compared to what else is available on the market, because at this €1,500 price point, every single 17-inch laptop has the exact same 6700 HQ processor in it. It has somewhere between 8 and 16 gigabytes of memory. They all have an IPS 1080p display. And then where they try to differentiate themselves is some of them have SSDs, others have only hard drives, some of them have NVMe, some don't. And the Omen is actually the only laptop that has all of those things combined into one laptop, which again on the spec sheet makes it look pretty good. So conclusion time on the Omen 17, and the conclusion is that I do not like this laptop. That is the short conclusion, and that is not because of the noise or the build quality or the performance when it's using just battery power. It's just the combination of all those things. And for me, I would be able to live with just crappy build quality if I got all the performance and battery life at this price point. But it's just the combination of all those negatives that makes this laptop just something that I would not recommend to anyone unless you are constantly working with headphones on, you always have a power supply next to you, and you have an assistant or a trolley to carry this thing for you. So guys, if you like this video more than I like this laptop, press that like button, and if you didn't, there's the subscribe button for when I make a video that you do like. Now you can leave a comment below saying how biased I am, which I'm not, because the people at HP were actually really nice people. I met them at Brand Bazaar, had a really nice chat with them. They're awesome people. It's just that it's not a good product. If you want to follow the channel, there is Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for beautiful pictures of other laptops. And if you want to really support the channel, there is Patreon and paypal.me. For now though, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next week.